Hello, my name's Charles Elford and I'm the author of Black Marler, the Samuel Coleridge-Taylor story. If you don't know anything about Coleridge-Taylor already, or if you know the music but you don't know his life story, or if you think you know the name but you don't know quite what he did, then I'll tell you in a couple of minutes, hopefully, a little bit about the book. I won't go into the music because you can listen to it. There's a lot of it on the market now. There's his clarinet quintet, which he wrote when he was a student. He was challenged by his professor to write a clarinet quintet with no discernible Brahmsian influence, and he was told that this was probably impossible, but he went away and he did it anyway, and he's come up with the most wonderful piece of music. Another one that's very popular at the moment is the violin concerto, which looks like that, which again I highly recommend. And the one that he's perhaps most famous for is the Hiawatha trilogy. In a nutshell, Coleridge-Taylor, Samuel Coleridge-Taylor, not to be confused with the poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Samuel Coleridge-Taylor was born in 1875 to a white English mother and a black African father. His father left when Coleridge-Taylor was very, very young, probably only about 1 year old. He left and went back to Sierra Leone, leaving the mother alone with the child. Coleridge-Taylor was brought up in Croydon. He learnt the violin as a child, was a little bit of a child prodigy, was a very good singer, was part of the local choir in Croydon where he grew up. He didn't really experience that much racism. There was some name calling, but not a huge amount. He was viewed, I think, all his life more of a curiosity than anything else. He did make 3 very, very high profile trips to America in 1904, 1906 and 1910, which were very, very well documented. He met the President, Roosevelt. He was the first person of African descent ever to conduct a white orchestra in America. Other accolades you could lay on Coleridge-Taylor was that he was a founding member of the Pan-African movement. He wrote a newspaper at the time, which again was a sort of a Pan-Africanist newspaper. He was a lecturer, a teacher, adjudicator. He adjudicated at the Welsh Eisteddfods a few years running. He was an absolutely amazing person, but as I say, he's best known for Hiawatha, which he wrote when he was very young. He'd only just graduated from the Royal College of Music. He set the first part of the Longfellow poem and called it Hiawatha's Wedding Feast. This he sold outright before the first performance to the publishers for 15 guineas. The performance was a massive success, so much so that it turned Coleridge-Taylor, who was only in his early 20s at the time, into an international superstar overnight. In the United Kingdom, every village, practically every street, had a choral society, and from what I understand, they were sick to death of singing the Messiah year after year. And when Hiawatha came out, they just grabbed it open arms, and it was secular, it was easy to sing, it was fun to sing, it was highly emotive, wonderful, rousing, thumping, hummable stuff. And as I say, it turned him into a superstar overnight. It won him the hearts of British royalty at the time, as well as the public. On the back of that success, he wrote The Death of Minnehaha, which was the second part, and to turn it into a trilogy, he wrote Hiawatha's Departure, which is setting a third part of the poem. Excuse me. What have I got here? This is all a bit sad, really. I've got a photograph of his grave here, which is in Croydon. This book was key in my writing. This book is written by Coleridge-Taylor's wife, Jessie. After his death, it's sort of her reminiscences. And the other book that I used for my source material was this one, which is written by his daughter. And this has a much happier picture in Oops, can you see that? That's Coleridge-Taylor, aged 23. So around the time that Hiawatha was written. He tried to duplicate the success of Hiawatha a few times, once with A Tale of Old Japan, which is based on a poem by Alfred Noyes, and the third one was Meg Blaine, which is a poem by Robert Buchanan. It's a Scottish story set on bleak, windswept beaches. It's a sort of a Grace Darling type story. A woman rowing out to sea to rescue men drowning from a shipwreck. Coleridge-Taylor also wrote some ballet music, and so Hiawatha became a pageant in the waiting. And after his death, and all the way up to the beginning of the Second World War, that's exactly what happened. The Royal Albert Hall staged these epic events where there was a massive, great backdrop, a cast of thousands, a lake, snow falling from the ceiling, waterfalls running down the side of the stalls, and this is a treasured possession. This is a programme from the 1938 production of Hiawatha from the Royal Choral Society. It's high time the Royal Albert Hall brought those productions back, I think. The other thing that won him people's hearts was his songwriting. A great friend of his, Kathleen Easman, an African woman living in London, poet, artist, wrote these wonderful 5 fairy ballads, they're called, and her friend Coleridge-Taylor set one of them to music, Big Lady Moon, and was a very, very popular pop song of its day. His children loved it. His son was called Hiawatha and his daughter was called Gwen. I've had some very kind things said about the book. I'll read you a few of them. Yasmin Alibi Brown is a journalist and broadcaster on BBC Radio 4 and the World Service, and she said, if it was fiction you wouldn't believe this stirring story. A mixed-raced, gifted composer with the most English of names makes his mark against the odds, and yet, like so many other geniuses, is brought down too soon. Everybody should know the legend that was Samuel Coleridge-Taylor. Most don't, and that's the greatest pity of all. And I would echo that. David McVicker, who is a very, very well respected opera director, said Charles Elford has written a lucid and touching account of Coleridge-Taylor's life, a book that deals as much with the social history of Edwardian Britain as it does with the art and the music of this unjustly neglected composer. And Mr. Norman Lebrecht, who's a cultural commentator, novelist, assistant editor of the London Evening Standard and presenter of Lebrecht Live on BBC Radio 3, said it's an incredibly human story which in my view would translate extremely well to film. Which is interesting because it was actually an article by Mr. Lebrecht that kicked off the whole thing for me. In 2004, in April, Norman Lebrecht wrote an article introducing the recording of the violin concerto, which is a story in itself, and got me started on the whole journey which resulted in my book Black Marler, the Samuel Coleridge-Taylor story. I hope I've whetted your appetite. I haven't touched half of it. I haven't talked at all about his brush with a certain unsinkable transatlantic liner. I don't want to spoil anything. I haven't talked about his great friendship with William Hurlstone and the tragic death of Hurlstone that he never really got over. Hurlstone suffered from bronchial asthma all his life. I haven't talked about how he was regarded in America and the 3 trips he made there and the works that he wrote for his American friends. He was a cultural icon to African Americans. I haven't really touched the surface, but if I've whetted your appetite, and I really hope I have, you might want to consider looking at my book. It's available on Amazon. It's called Black Marler, the Samuel Coleridge-Taylor story. I have a website as well called www.blackmarler.com. I love to hear from people who've read the book or who love the music or are fascinated by the man himself. So do get in touch if you'd like to. I would love to hear from you. I hope you've been able to hear me okay, and I hope you've enjoyed hearing a little bit about Samuel Coleridge-Taylor, the Black Marler.